Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Chapter 20, The Great Gum Machine. Wonka led the party over to a gigantic machine that stood in the center of the inventing room. It was a mountain of gleaming metal that towered high above the children and their parents. Out of the very top of it, there sprouted hundreds and hundreds of thin glass tubes, and the glass tubes all curled downwards and came together in a bunch and hung suspended over an enormous round tub, as big as a bath. "Here we go!" cried Mr. Wonka, and he pressed 3 different buttons on the side of a machine. A second later, a mighty rumbling sound came from inside it, and the whole machine began to shake most frighteningly, and steam began hissing out of it all over. And then suddenly the watchers noticed that runny stuff was pouring down the insides of all the hundreds of little glass tubes, and squirting it out into a great tub below. And every single tube, the runny stuff was a different color, so that all the colors of the rainbow, and many others as well, came splashing and splashing into a tub. It was a lovely sight. And when the tub was nearly full, Mr. Wonka pressed another button, and immediately the runny stuff stopped running out of the tubes, the rumbling sound disappeared, and then a great whizzer started whizzing around inside the enormous tub, mixing up all the different colored liquids like an ice cream soda. Gradually, the mixture began to froth. It became frothier and frothier, and it turned from blue to white to green to brown to yellow, and then back to blue again. "Now watch, children," said Mr. Wonka. Click went the machine, and the whizzer stopped whizzing. And now there came a sort of sucking noise, and very quickly all the blue frothy mixture in the large basin was sucked back into the stomach of the machine. There was a moment of silence, then a few queer rumblings were heard, and then silence again. Then suddenly the machine let out a monstrous mighty groan, and at the same moment a tiny drawer, no bigger than a slot machine, popped out of the side of the machine, and in the drawer there lay something so small and thin and gray that everyone thought it must have been a mistake. The thing looked like a little strip of gray cardboard. The children and their parents stared at the little gray strip lying in the drawer. "You mean that's all?" said Mike TV, disgusted. "That's all," answered Mr. Wonka, gazing proudly at the result. "Don't you know what it is?" There was a pause. Picture time. Then suddenly, Violet Beauregard, the big goofy gum-chewing girl, let out a yell of excitement. "By God, it's gum!" she shrieked. "It's a stick of chewing gum!" "Right you are!" cried Mr. Wonka, slapping Violet hard on the back. "It's a stick of gum! It's a stick of the most amazing and fabulous and sensational gum in all the world!" Chapter 21. Goodbye, Violet. "This gum," Mr. Wonka went on, "is my latest, my greatest, and my most fascinating invention yet. It's a chewing gum meal. It's that tiny little strip of gum lying there. It's a whole 3-course dinner all by itself." "What sort of nonsense is this?" said one of the fathers. "My dear sir, when I started selling this gum in the shops, it will change everything. It will be in the end of all kitchens and all cooking. There will be no more marketing to do, no more buying of meat and groceries. There'll be no knives and forks at mealtimes. No plates, no washing up, no garbage, no mess. Just a little strip of Wonka's magic chewing gum." "And that's all you'll ever need at breakfast, lunch, and supper. This piece of gum I've just made happens to be tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie, but you can have almost anything you want." "What do you mean? It's tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie," said Violet Beauregard. "If you were to start chewing it, then that is exactly what you would get on the menu. It's absolutely amazing. You can actually feel the food going down your throat and into your tummy. And you can taste it perfectly. It fills you up. It satisfies you. It's terrific." "It's utterly impossible," said Veruca Salt. "Just so long as it's gum," shouted Violet Beauregard. "Just so long as it's gum and I can chew it, then that's for me." She quickly took out her own world record piece of chewing gum out of her mouth and stuck it behind her left ear. "Come on, Mr. Wonka, hand over this magic gum of yours and we'll see if this thing works." "No, Violet," said Mrs. Beauregard, her mother. "Don't. Let's do nothing silly. Violet." "I want the gum," said Violet obstinately. "What's so silly about that?" I would rather you didn't take it," Mr. Wonka told her gently. "You see, I haven't gotten it quite right yet. There are still one or two things." "Oh, heck to that," said Violet. And suddenly, before Mr. Wonka could stop her, she shot a fat hand out and grabbed the stick of gum out of the little drawer and popped it into her mouth. At once her huge, well-trained jaws started chewing away at that like a pair of tongs. "Don't!" said Mr. Wonka. "Fabulous! It's tomato soup! It's hot and creamy and delicious! I can feel it running down my throat right now!" "Stop! That gum isn't ready yet. It's not right." "Of course it's right. It's working beautifully. Oh my, what lovely soup this is!" "Spit it out! It's changing!" shouted Violet, chewing and grinning both at the same time. "The second course is coming up. Oh my God, it's roast beef! It's tender and juicy. Oh boy, what a flavor! The baked potato is marvelous too. It's got a crispy skin, and it's all filled with butter on the inside." "But how interesting, Violet. You are a clever girl," said Mrs. Beauregard. "Keep chewing, kiddo," said Mr. Beauregard. "Keep right on chewing, baby. This is a great day for the Beauregards. Our little girl is the first person in the world to have a chewing gum meal." Everybody was watching Violet Beauregard as she stood there chewing this extraordinary gum. Little Charlie Bucket was staring at her, absolutely spellbound, watching her huge rubbery lips as they pressed and unpressed with the chewing. And Grandpa Joe stood beside him, gaping at the girl. Mr. Wonka was wringing his hands and saying, "No, no, 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 no. It isn't right for eating. It isn't right. You mustn't do it." "Blueberry pie and cream," shouted Violet. "Here it comes. Oh my, it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's exactly as though I'm swallowing it. It's as though I'm chewing and swallowing great big spoonfuls of the most marvelous blueberry pie in the world." "Good heavens!" shrieked Mrs. Beauregard, suddenly staring at Violet. "What's happening to your nose?" "Oh, be quiet, Mother, and let me finish." "It's turning blue. Your nose is turning as blue as a blueberry." "Your mother is right. Your whole nose has gone purple." "What do you mean?" said Violet, still chewing away. "Your cheeks, they're turning blue as well. So is your chin. Your whole face is turning blue." "Spit that gum out at once," ordered Mr. Beauregard. "Mercy, save us! The girl is going blue and purple all over. Even her hair is changing color. Violet, you're turning violet. What is happening to you?" "I told you I hadn't gotten it quite right," said Mr. Wonka, shaking his head. "I'll say you haven't. Just look at the girl now." Everybody was staring at Violet, and what a terrible, peculiar sight she was. Her face and hands and neck, in fact, The skin all over her body, as well as her great big mop of curly hair, had turned a brilliant purplish blue, the color of blueberry juice. "It always goes wrong when we come to the dessert. It's the blueberry pie that does it. But I'll get it right one day. Just you wait and see." "Violet! You're swelling up!" screamed Mrs. Beauregard. "I feel sick." "You're swelling up!" screamed Mrs. Beauregard again. "I feel most peculiar," gasped Violet. "I'm not surprised," said Mr. Beauregard. "Great heavens, girl! You're blowing up like a balloon!" screeched Mrs. Beauregard. "Like a blueberry." "Call a doctor." "Prick her with a pin," said one of the other fathers. "Save her," said Mrs. Beauregard, wringing her hands. But there was no saving her now. Her body was swelling up and changing shape at such a rate that within a minute it had turned into nothing less than an enormous round blue ball, a gigantic blueberry in fact, and all that remained of Violet Beauregard herself was a tiny pair of legs and a tiny pair of arms sticking out of the great round fruit and a little round head on top. "It always happens that way. I've tried it 20 times in the testing room on 20 Oompa Loompas, and every one of them finished up as a blueberry. It's just most annoying. I can't understand it." Picture time. "For a daughter? Put her back this instant!" yelled Mrs. Beauregard. Mr. Wonka clicked his fingers, and 10 Oompa Loompas appeared immediately at his side. "Roll Mrs. Beauregard onto the boat and take her along to the juicing room at once." The juicing room? "What are they going to do to her there?" "Squeeze her. We've got to squeeze the juice out of her immediately. After that, we'll just have to see how she comes out. But don't worry, my dear. Mrs. Beauregard will get her prepared if it's the last thing we do. I am sorry about it all. I really am." Already, the 10 Oompa Loompas were rolling the enormous blueberry across the floor of the inventing room toward the door that led the chocolate river to where the boat was waiting. Mr. and Mrs. Beauregard hurried after them. The rest of the party, including little Charlie Bucket and Grandpa Joe, stood absolutely still and watched them go. "Listen," whispered Charlie. "Listen, Grandpa. The Oompa Loompas in the boat outside are starting to sing." The voices, 100 of them singing together, came loud and clear in the room. "Dear friends, we surely all agree there's almost nothing worse to see than some repulsive little bum who always chewing gum, as very near as bad as those who sit around and pick their nose. So please believe us when we say that chewing gum will never pay. The sticky habit's bound to send this chewer to a sticky end. Did any of you know a person called Miss Biggie Low? The dreadful woman saw no wrong in chewing all day long. She chewed while bathing in the tub. She chewed while dancing at her club. She chewed in church and on the bus. It really was quite ludicrous. And when she couldn't find her gum, she chewed up the linoleum. Or anything that happened near a pair of boots, the postman's ear, or other people's underclothes. And once she chewed her boyfriend's nose. She went on chewing till at last her chewing muscles grew so fast that from her face her giant chin stuck out just like a violin. For years and years she chewed away, consuming 50 packs a day, until one summer eve, alas, a horrid business came to pass. Miss Bigelow went late to bed. For half an hour she lay and read, chewing all the while, like some great clockwork crocodile. At last she put her gum away upon her very special tray, and settled back and went to sleep. She managed this by counting sheep. But now, how strange, although she slept, those massive jaws of hers still kept on chewing through the night, even though there was nothing to bite. There they were, you see, in such a groove, they positively had to move. And very grim it was to bear, and pitch darkness... very grim it was to hear, in pitch darkness, loud and clear, the sleeping woman's great big trap, opening and shutting, snap, 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 faster, faster, chop, chop, chop. The noise went on, it couldn't stop, until at last her jaws decided to pause and open extra wide. And on this, with the most tremendous chew, they bit the lady's tongue in two. Therefore, after from chewing gum, Miss Bigelow was always dumb, and spent her life shut up in some disgusting sanatorium, and that is why we'll try so hard to save Miss Violet Beauregard from suffering an equal fate. She's still quite young, it's not too late. Provided she survives the cure, we hope she does, we can't be sure. That got dark. Picture time. In the story, his daughter doesn't actually work. His daughter just does laundry and boils cabbage. Chapter 22. Along the Corridor. Well, well, well. 2 naughty little children gone. 3 good little children left. I think we'd better get out of this room quickly before we lose anyone else. But Mr. Wonka, said Charlie Bucket anxiously, will Violet Beauregard ever be all right again? Or will she always be a blueberry? They'll dejuice her in no time flat. They'll roll her into the dejuicing machine, and she'll come out just thin as a whistle. But will she still be blue all over? She'll be purple, a fine, rich purple from head to toe. But there you are. That's what comes from chewing disgusting gum all day. If you think gum is so disgusting, said Mike TV, then why do you make it in your factory? I do wish you wouldn't mumble, said Mr. Wonka. I can't hear a word you're saying. Come on, off we go. Hurry up and follow me. We're going into the corridors again. And so saying, Mr. Wonka scuttled across the far end of the inventing room and went out through a small secret door hidden behind a lot of pipes and stoves. The 3 remaining children, Veruca Salt, Mike TV, and Charlie Bucket, together with the 5 remaining grown-ups, followed after him. Charlie Bucket saw that they were now back in one of those long pink corridors with many other pink corridors leading out of it. Mr. Wonka was rushing along in the front, turning left and right and left, and Grandpa Joe was saying, "Keep a good hold of my hand, Charlie. It would be terrible to get lost in here." Picture time. Mr. Wonka was saying, "No time for any more messing about. We'll never get anywhere at the rate we've been going." And on he rushed, down the endless pink corridors with his black top hat perched on the top of his head, and his plum-covered velvet coattails flying out behind him like the flag in the wind. They passed another door, then another, and another. There were doors every 20 paces or so along the corridor now, and they all had something written on them, and strange clanking noises were coming from behind several of them, and delicious smells came wafting through keyholes, and sometimes little jets of colored steam shot out from behind the cracks underneath. Grandpa Joe and Charlie were half running and half walking to keep up with Mr. Wonka, but they were able to read what It said on quite a few of the doors as they hurried by. Eatable marshmallow pillows, it said on one. Marshmallow pillows are terrific, shouted Mr. Wonka as he dashed by. They'll be all the rage when I get them into the shops. No time to go in, though. No time. Lickable wallpaper for nurseries, it said on the next door. Lovely stuff, lickable wallpaper, cried Mr. Wonka, rushing past. It has pictures of fruits on it, bananas, apples, oranges, grapes, pineapples, strawberries, and snozzberries. Snozzberries, said Mike TV. Don't interrupt. The wallpaper has pictures of all these fruits printed on it, and when you lick the picture of a banana, it tastes like a banana. And when you lick a strawberry, it tastes like a strawberry. And when you lick a snozzberry, it tastes exactly like a snozzberry. But what does a snozzberry taste like? You're mumbling again, said Mr. Wonka. Speak up, please. On we go. Hurry up. Hot ice creams for cold days, it said on the next door. Extremely useful in the winter, said Mr. Wonka, rushing on. Hot ice cream, it warms you up. No end in freezing weather. I also make hot ice cubes for putting in hot drinks. Hot ice cubes make hot drinks even hotter. Cows that give chocolate milk, it said on the next door. Oh, my pretty little cows. How I love those cows. But why can't we see them? Asked Veruca Salt. Why do we have to go rushing on past all these lovely rooms? We shall stop in time, cried out Mr. Wonka. Don't be so madly impatient. Busy lifting drinks, it said on the next door. Oh, those are fabulous. They fill you with bubbles, and the bubbles are full of a special kind of gas. And this gas is so terrifically lifting that it lifts you right off the ground just like a balloon. And up you go until your head hits the ceiling, and there you stay. But how do you come down again? Asked little Charlie. You burp, of course. You do a great big, long, rude burp. And up comes the gas, and down comes you. But don't drink it outdoors. There's no knowing how high up you'll be carried if you do that. I gave some to an old Oompa Loompa once in the backyard, and he went up and up and up and up and up and up and disappeared out of sight. It was very sad. I never saw him again. He should have burped. Of course he should have burped. I stood there shouting, burp, you silly ass, burp, or you'll never come down again. But he didn't, or couldn't, or wouldn't. I don't know which. Maybe he was too polite. Well, he must be on the moon now. On the next door it said, square candies that look round. What? Cried Mr. Wonka, skidding to a halt suddenly. I am very proud of my square candies that look round. And let us take a peek. And that's the end of Reads Tonight.